Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and we now have probably the biggest blockbuster of Elon Musk's slow drip trap of Twitter file stories. It shows exactly how ingrained the FBI was in the machinations of Twitter executives' decision to censor the New York Post story on the Hunter Biden laptop. To get to the details of it, let's turn to New York Post reporter John Levine. Good to talk to you again, John.
Yeah, we go way back, Larry.
We do, and I so admire the work you've been doing at the New York Post, and certainly from your perspective there at the paper Hamilton founded back in the day. You have a keen eye on this story since it affected your publication personally.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been here in the bunker sort of since it happened in October of 20. But yeah, the key disclosures from the Twitter files is that you see months and months of sort of priming the pump by the FBI to get Twitter to be aware of a Hunter Biden related story that's coming. The FBI would have been aware of Hunter because they had the hard drive. John Paul Mac Isaac provided it to them in 2019.
That's right.
They also would have had it through Rudy Giuliani's cloud, which they were spying on as part of an unrelated investigation. And the key thing that I found in the Twitter files that was interesting was October 13th in the evening, the FBI reaches out to Twitter and says, this is an important email, reply that you've received it, and we're going to send you 10 very important documents that you need to see right now. That's the evening of October 13th. Then October 14th, 5 a.m., the New York Post publishes the first tranche of Hunter Biden stories. A few hours later, we're censored by the website, obviously. And then a few hours after that, there's another email which talks about a call between Twitter's general counsel, James Baker, who used to work at the FBI as their general counsel,
right,
placing a phone call to his successor at the agency. So the two counsels are now talking to each other, and we don't know what that conversation was about. Right. And we don't know what the files the FBI sent Twitter on October 13th were. So these are unanswered questions we got to get to the bottom of.
What is very interesting, though, around that same timeline, and as you point out, John, very importantly, the FBI was well aware of this laptop because it was handed over to him. John Paul Mac Isaac did the right thing, did what you're supposed to do. He saw this laptop, he saw that there was criminal evidence on it, and he turned it over to the good guys, the FBI. And here we are now in October. They still haven't done anything with it. The FBI knew very well that this was not a hack by Russian propagandists over in Moscow. They knew the origins of this laptop. And immediately when the story hit from the New York Post, Yoel Roth, the executive at Twitter who's in charge of making the decision whether to censor or not, his first email was, hey, this doesn't look like a hack. After all, it's through the New York Post. It's not some renegade website and just some rando user. The New York Post has already vetted this story. It doesn't look like a hack. And who was it at Twitter who said, oh, no, 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 this is definitely something that needs to be censored? It was that same guy, Jim Baker.
Jim Baker, that's right. That's right. He was basically acting as the FBI's man on the inside, clearly. And he still maintained deep contacts at the agency. And one of the things that hasn't gotten as much attention, but it's important, is that even though there was a tremendous effort by the FBI to influence Twitter from without, there was also a very, very powerful way the FBI could influence from within, and that was by all of the former and retired FBI agents that went to work at Twitter. Dozens. Yeah. They had their own Slack channel. There were so many. And they were not just people guarding the door, security guards, like, law enforcement. They were people who took very senior roles in teams like the Trust and Safety Team, which were the people responsible for censorship and shadow banning and who made the decision ultimately to censor the Post.
And of course, after that extraordinary move to censor this and delete it and suspend the account, other newspapers, competitors, other broadcast outlets, they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And this was their fig leaf, wasn't it? Oh, well, clearly, since Twitter censored this, this has got to be Russian propaganda, which basically isolated you guys. The accusation was the New York Post was working in tandem with Putin.
Right, right. And, the key thing that you have to remember is the intelligence agencies created this narrative of a Russian misinformation plot, and they knew it wasn't the case. Yeah. So they knowingly spread misinformation themselves to the American people on behalf of a political candidate to influence an election. It's really the biggest story of the 2020 campaign. It's possibly even bigger than any individual crimes Hunter committed. And we are, for our country's sake, we need to get to the bottom of it.
Agreed.
Next year.
Well, and part of your beat there, John, at the New York Post, and it is a fantastic byline, and I recommend it to everyone, is you follow this intrigue, but you also focus on new media and the use of social media. And this is, I feel like this is a turning point. This isn't just about Twitter. It's about other social media properties as well. and the obvious influence that the government has on them. Do you think it continues?
I mean, I hope that the conversation we're having continues because it really shouldn't. It's been treated as a partisan issue. It really shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should worry Democrats too that the FBI is going into these companies and basically putting their thumb on the scale of the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
No, that's not the appropriate role for the FBI. The FBI should be working with Twitter and Facebook on like human trafficking, child exploitation, terrorism. That's what the FBI should be doing, not assigning 80 agents to police political speech. This is something everyone should agree on, and I hope we can come up with a bipartisan solution to sort of reining in these excesses next year.
What do you make of the argument? Apologists for the FBI, maybe the FBI themselves is making this argument, saying, listen, we are doing our job making sure that we don't have foreign influence in our country, foreign influence in our elections. We merely raised this issue, brought it to the attention of Twitter and other social media engines, and it's up to them to decide whether they want to censor. But we didn't tell them to do anything. We were just raising awareness.
This is like, yeah, someone asked me that the other day, and I said, it's like when the mafia comes to you and says, hello, we're offering some protection services. Would you like to purchase them? And it's just a choice, Larry.
Right,
but,
right.
When the FBI says, hi, we think these tweets violate your terms of service and they're foreign actors, we think it might be in your best interest to take them down. It seems to me pretty hard to turn down such a request.
Yeah.
And again, they may say, well, it was just foreign actors. If we look at the tweets they flagged to Twitter, they were Americans. There was people telling jokes. It was small, nothing accounts. And Twitter's own internal reviews said that there was not a lot of foreign actor, state actor activity on the platform. And the FBI continued to be like, no, do your reviews again. I think that you're not catching it. They were looking to find something that Twitter said wasn't there.
So, I mean, you don't speak for the New York Post, but you work there, you're in the offices. What's the morale like? There's got to be a sense of vindication here after, sadly, weeks, even months, of other media outlets accusing you of being a propaganda arm.
Everyone is vindicated. The vindication happened months and months ago. We've known the laptop was real since day one. But the vindication, I think 6 or 7 months ago, you started to see the Washington Post, the New York Times begin to correct the record here. And at a certain point, Hunter Biden is under federal investigation. Allegedly, some conclusion to that probe is imminent. But you can't be in a situation where Hunter Biden potentially is facing federal charges and your audience, whether it be the New York Times, CNN, NPR, has no idea that he's even under investigation. So at a certain point, they needed to kind of turn around the narrative, be like, look, there is this thing going on. But I still run into people who think it's Russian misinformation.
Yep.
I got a very eclectic Thanksgiving, and I talk to relatives, and it's just like they're in this Bermuda news triangle where they have no idea what's happening. They're just trapped in the CNN, NPR, New York Times consensus. They think it's all just a made-up thing, or that maybe it's just, well, he's just a drug addict and leave him alone.
Yeah.
And it's not that. It's so much bigger than that. And unfortunately, many Americans are just not well served by the news outlets which they consume.
Amen to that. But that helps us out. It helps John's work at the New York Post, and it helps us here on O'Connor Tonight because people know better and they want to find alternate avenues for news and information. John, thanks. Great work. Tell everyone at the Post we said hi. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.